Welcome to this episode of the Mayor's Report. I'm David Smith, editor of the Somerville Times. With me is Mayor Joseph Curtatone. How you doing today?
David, how are you? Happy St. Patrick's Day today.
You too. Forgot to wear my green.
I wore mine. I struggle to find my tie, but I have one.
So, been a while since the last episode, and obviously a lot going on in the city. One thing that's been on people's minds for a number of reasons is the issue of affordable housing. I know it's also something you've written about in the opinion columns. Basic question, can Somerville stay affordable, especially as it continues to gain in popularity and prominence, and with it rising rents and rising property values?
Well, you know, the question for this region is, what are we going to do about it? And if, as a region, we don't develop long-term and implement effective strategies, we will not stay affordable. For Somerville, this is one of our values we hold dearest to make sure that we hold on to who we are, our diversity, our multicultural uniqueness, our originality, the creative base of the artist community. And as we finally see that prosperity we all hoped and planned for many, many years, we want all tides that rise to raise all boats, and we don't want to push our soul out at the same time. And Somerville, as part of our Summer Vision goals, we know we're going to build at least 6,000 additional units of housing, where more than 1,200 will be permanently affordable. But recent studies, David, have showed that the region, which has more than 3.5 million people in it, needs 435,000 housing units by 2040. Now, Somerville can't build 435,000 housing units, and it can't just be done town to town or city to city. As a region, we need long-term strategies, and this is what I hope, along with the new mayor of Boston, Martin Walsh, and other mayors, and we're in fact meeting today, that we can start thinking beyond our own borders. We can stop being provincial about this. This is critical, and the state needs to take a role as well. If we don't, then we're not going to just make our cities and towns unaffordable to live in. We're going to push out a lot of talent, a lot of uniqueness of who we are. So we need to be really smart about this and be very aggressive.
Well, I think that's something with Somerville and its personality that you mentioned, the arts community. Artists, you always hear starving artists, struggling artists. So you have that whole community. You have the generational community of families that have been here for generations and want to remain here.
Sure.
And then you have the new people coming in, people that are working in Boston, and it's a 2-minute ride or commute back and forth. So it does seem to be a challenge to be able to accommodate all of those people. So aside from building dedicated affordable housing, is there anything else that can be done?
Well, you're right. It's interesting because you're referring to really the greatest demographic shift we've seen in this country since mid-century, where you have baby boomers, people who want to retire and age in place in a particular community, millennials like ourselves, and then the young hipsters. People want to live in walkable, bikeable, healthy lifestyle centers connected to culture and academia and healthcare and job, and that's Somerville fits right in that hemisphere. And yeah, we need to absolutely build more affordable housing, but we need housing in general. We need a diversity of housing, from market rate housing, from rental to home ownership opportunities. There's just an absolute shortage in housing stock for this region, and this isn't something that snuck up on us. We've learned in Somerville this from our past. We've studied this. We've planned to understand how and what will our neighborhoods be like around the future transit nodes of the Green Line, and in major transformation areas like Assembly Square and the Inner Belt and Brick Bottom, and in Union. As a region, though, we have not done that. So building more housing stock of a variety of for a variety of income levels is important, and it has to be multi-income. There have to be multi-income opportunities, but we also need to invest in transportation. We need to make healthcare more affordable. We need to provide economic opportunity to people. That means raising the minimum wage. We need to give our immigrant community, the foreign-born population, which are such a big part of our culture, our neighborhoods, our community, our economy, the opportunity to have their kids be educated and receive the same opportunities in college that our kids do. We need to give them the opportunity to have citizenship. We need to give them the opportunity to drive, to get a job. So there's so many variables that impact our economy, our ecosystem. And the major one right in front of us is the amount of housing stock we lack. But if we do all these things, and it might seem like, my God, that's so daunting. How do you get it done? We can get it done. We need to identify and plan for it and then go get it.
So what kind of, I mean, Somerville obviously is geographically small,
Right.
Tiny. Where does that housing stock go? What, I mean, do you take down old 3-family houses and replace it with bigger structures?
Well,
I mean,
there are a variety of ways we'll undertake it. We've increased the linkage section of our zoning ordinance. So when, in other words, when a commercial development comes in over a certain amount of square feet, they pay a certain fee per square foot. And we increased that. We've done that, occasionally after we study the matter, and markets and the economy has changed and justified it. And that money goes into Affordable Housing Trust, which lends money to seed and or develop affordable housing project or mixed income housing. We've also increased the inclusionary section over time of our zoning ordinance. That's the amount of, so when you build so many units of housing, you click in the factor that requires you to build so many affordable housing units for so many market rate units, and currently stands at 12%, in some areas at 15%, in some areas it may go up to 20%, in the large transformative areas. But as we plan the neighborhoods of the future, as we're building out ones like Assembly Square, or as we're planning Inderbilt and Brick Bottom and Union Square, we want to have a strong concentration of housing, affordable, market, rental, ownership, and then the type of housing too. And Union Square has strong interest in that artist base, but a lot of the city, we need to have that middle income family housing. People who start in here in Somerville, maybe a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, want to have a family, they want to grow it, they need a 3-bedroom. That stock is greatly lacking. So we've planned out in the areas that the city's transforming, we're going to see the greatest amount of development. And we're emphasizing a certain amount of housing being built there. And we're really excited. But again, Somerville alone, even if we hit 6,000 plus units, and we will hit that, we're well on our way. When we hit that number alone, we can't solve the regional affordable housing crisis. And to say, for me to say that if we do that, that'll solve everyone's problems, that's just false. That'll be like saying that we can ignore all the market pressures around our borders and surrounding communities. We're a tightly woven region. The greater Boston region goes beyond North Station in Boston. And we need to start thinking more globally how we're going to solve this problem if we want to get it done.
And you mentioned the Green Line extension, and that's going to, it's almost hard to imagine how much that's going to change the areas where it's extending to, say, Ball Square, Union Square. And I know there's been a lot of planning and accounting going into that, but just how much of an impact, say 15 years out, do you see those squares? How different from what you look at today and what you think they'll end up looking like?
I like to say that when the Green Line is fully extended and you combine that with the new Orange Line station and Assembly, and the extension of the community path all the way into Boston, we'll have begun the repainting of the canvas of the city. So think of this today. Without any new Green Line stations yet, and the Orange Line station and Assembly not built out, only 15% of our population is within a half-mile walking or biking distance of a transit node. And this was a city that once had 20 rail or trolley stops where every neighborhood was dotted with them. It defined our neighborhoods and industry and squares. Upon full completion of the Green Line, along with the new Orange Line station Assembly, we would have transformed from 15 to 85% of the population within a half-mile walking and biking distance of a transit node. Think what that does for our quality of life, for our environment, and what it does to spark economic opportunity. And we know, all studies show, the higher your bike and walk score, and Somerville's been rising over the last few years, the greater impact, positive impact on your local economy. But we're not just counting in Somerville on building a transit node that's going to change anything. We're planning. We're thinking about the zoning that encapsulate a vision. We're thinking about what those neighborhoods will look like. What will the job opportunities be? What will the housing opportunities be? Who will live there? Who will be able to afford to live there? What new industries can we attract? And we're really excited about that. But yeah, I certainly see a great transformation in all the areas in the transformation areas, like Assembly, which you're seeing, which is a brand new neighborhood that did not exist on the Mystic River, bringing back neighborhoods of the past like Brick Bottom, uncapping industries in the future, perhaps the new thing in the research era, perhaps in Boynton Yards and Union and other parts of the city. But also, there's some parts of the city where transit will go in we want to conserve and preserve. Parts of Union Square, maybe in Magoon, or we want to enhance. So we've set those goals out in Summer Vision, and part of that goal of repainting the canvases to create 125 acres of new open space. Extremely important for the most densely populated city in New England. Creating 30,000 new jobs in the city, and that's important because although we've had a very low unemployment rate, even during the deepest abyss of this Great Recession, at 3.9 to 4.1%, when most of the country was at around 8%. 85% of the people who are employed leave Somerville every day to work somewhere else. So creating that industry here will have a great impact on our neighborhoods, our squares, our economy. So these goals are important, and one of them is also to shift the mode of transportation to at least 50% being by biking and walking, and new rail transit, such as the Green Line, which will make us a healthier, more happier, more productive community. It's going to have an incredible impact on the physical nature of the city, the economy of our community, the quality of life, and the fabric and how we live, and our overall health.
Well, I'm picturing, say, Ball Square right now. You can drive around for an hour looking for a parking space, and that sounds like that might be one of the things that the more you increase public transportation, less people, there will be less of a reason for people to get in their car and drive, and that will change, I would think, the entire just streetscape, ideally. Yeah,
statistics today show that people are choosing to drive less. And we know in Massachusetts, there's the greatest demand, and across the country, for public transportation. T-ridership is at its all-time high. That's great. But just as we need to plan more strategically, and for tomorrow on the affordable housing front, or on the housing front, we need to do the same thing around transportation. Massachusetts has taken some important steps in the last year with the transportation finance reform bill, and I think that is huge, where we have now more than $500 million of dedicated investment towards transportation to bring up our current systems, roadways, bridges, rail, to good state of repair, to invest in expansion projects like the Green Line. We need to do more, because if we don't, the Commonwealth as a whole gets locked out of that 21st century global economy. So it is really, really important. It will have a tremendous impact. And it's all about planning right. Acting today with an eye on tomorrow, playing the long game, and we'll build a sustainable community, a sustainable quality of life, a sustainable economy.
And kind of on that same idea of planning and things that are outside of the city's control, any casino updates as far as what the city is doing or petitioning or trying to do?
Well, I myself personally am opposed to casinos. Casinos, we talk about community. Casinos do not build communities. Casinos are part of invest in the economy of extraction, to take money out of the consumer off Main Street into the casino. And as you know, and as we all know, Massachusetts have made I believe, a historic decision to change that paradigm and make casinos at the very center of our economic nucleus. And I think that was an important, I think that's a very dangerous step we've taken. Now, for Somerville, we're faced with the prospects of a casino proposal in Everett, yards away from the most important mixed-use project or development project in the state, and one of the most important on the East Coast, where we have invested more than $130 million in public money in Assembly Square that has leveraged just initially more than $1.5 billion of private investment. Contrasting two approaches to how we build an economy. A very long thought, far-visioning, prudent, methodical approach to creating sustainable economy and building community, or the quick fix of a casino. And I think we'll prove that ours is the more sustainable way. In terms of where we are with the proposal from Wynn and Everett and East Boston, the city of Somerville has petitioned under the state legislation to the Gaming Commission that we are a quote-unquote surrounding community. And as such, under the law, we should be allowed to access mitigation monies in the event that a casino comes in to help mitigate impacts to our community. Now, I will be very candid and say we can figure out ways to mitigate some traffic and other hard impacts or direct impacts and visual ones that we see every day, or design impacts, but you cannot impact the social ills that follow every casino proposal in this country and around the world. You cannot impact the long-term economic impacts on local, small, independently owned businesses in our communities in our region. So this is going to be a tough battle on that front to understand what mitigation could be. Then it comes down to whether and this is the Boston region casino, and there'll be one, either Everett or Revere. I hope it's not Everett. I really hope it's not Revere either. But the likelihood is probably going to be one. So the city of Somerville is prepared to exercise all its rights and arguments, not just on determining what mitigation is for a surrounding community, but also as to on the allowance or issuance of a casino license to the city of Everett in the Wynn proposal.
And complete change in direction. With Somerville High School, the MSBA has invited the city to submit a statement of interest for possible renovation or replacement. Just your personal feeling, which do you want to see the existing school renovated, replaced? If replaced, built on the same site, built somewhere else?
Well, that's a good question, because that's exactly what we're going to find out. And I have some mixed emotions, being a graduate of Somerville High School, now 30 years. 30 years, David, it's flying by. And but the current building as we know it is in dire need of renovation or replacement. Just on the exterior alone, we have more than $10 million of deferred liability just on parts of the exterior. Now, the building is a beautiful, nostalgic, historic building, but it's not efficient on its energy systems, and certainly not on the building envelope. It was built in the late 1800s. It's had some different iterations with fires, expansions, adjustments, and the last greatest expansion was in the mid-'80s. I believe in '86 it opened up. I graduated '84. We started the renovation project where we sort of did some light cosmetic work on the main building, and we added the vocational wing. Somerville's a comprehensive high school, so we've blended in many of the vocational opportunities with the basic substantive courses as well. But we have to have a building that is efficient, that is conducive to learning, that provides an environment for all our kids to have a great educational experience. And then from the financial standpoint, we are just going to be throwing a lot of good money after bad if we try to put Band-Aids on the building that we have. Even as we speak, we're prepared to invest more than $1 million just to sustain the structure as we have now in the upcoming year. And we can't keep doing that. So we've petitioned, we've been invited by the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and we thank Treasurer Grossman and it's the MSBA's Executive Director, Mr. McCarthy, for helping to approve that. And we're going to follow that process, and will hopefully be approved for a formal feasibility study, which will take upwards to a year. As part of that process, there'll be an advisory committee that is regulated and statutorily designated. And we're going to ask that question, and we're going to determine, do we need a renovated high school in this current building? Do we need a new high school? I couldn't have said it better. Is the high school going to be on this campus, or is it going to be somewhere else? If it's somewhere else, as we're thinking about developing the city, you can picture there are very few places you could put it.
Right. I mean,
but we have to find out, and we have to make that determination. We can't kick this can down the road. It's not fair to the kids in this community and the students of the Somerville Public Schools, and it's certainly not fair to the taxpayers if we do that.
I mean, I was amazed to find out the school was that old.
Yeah.
I mean, you never hear of a high school that hasn't been I mean,
and it's
most high schools that
yeah.
are considered old now were built, say, in the 50s or 60s,
Right.
never mind late 1800s.
And at
so.
the MSBA, when they're reading off the dates of the different projects, school built in such and such, when they announced Somerville High School, the place paused and said, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
But I want the people to know, if you haven't been in Somerville High School, it is a very clean building. It's a safe building, but there are a lot of structural issues that are really maturing, and we have to get ahead of the situation.
And then just kind of open-ended back to you, what's keeping you busy at
Everything.
the moment? Everything. I mean,
It's my 4 boys. My wife and I, we have 4 boys, 10, 8, 7, 5, Cosmo, Joey, Patrick, and James. And now, you know what, it's on the city front, everything, every day, being mayor in a city like Somerville is so meaningful and fulfilling. You get a very active, engaged community. We've set our sights in the future and, you know, work in the community to realize our hopes and dreams and take on the challenges, and not just Somerville, but the region faces. That keeps me busy every day. And then it's going to my, you know, every other minute is going to, with my kids and my wife, you know, attending our hockey events, which is dying down. I got cabin fever, David. I want to get outside like everyone else. You know, it's time to get that sun out and make it a little warm. Let's get out. Let's start the soccer and baseball and all the other seasons outdoors.
it's now you're in your 6th term?
I started my 6th term, yes.
Amazing.
Amazing. We met many years ago.
Yeah.
I don't think I was even there when we met.
No. And getting back to the regional approach you were saying about housing, I know that's also coming up with heroin.
Yes.
Is an issue that there have been so many overdoses from tainted heroin. And I know the city's working with some other surrounding communities.
Yeah, we're in our health department, and we have great compacts and agreement with other communities. Somerville has faced issues like this in the past. When I became mayor in 2004, the one thing, I mean, it sticks with me every day is the crisis we had on OxyContin, opioid abuse, and suicide amongst our youth. And we just said we have a major issue. This is not something we can hide from. This is a community crisis, and it's a community we need to respond to. The way Somerville approached it as a community, with all our stakeholders and allies, and engaged each other, embraced and helped to heal each other, was a model that people look to as to how to deal with such crises. And even today, that is the work we've done in the city with our youth at the forefront, with survivors, with families of those who've lost loved ones. Has continued since 2004. It hasn't gone away. And what's troubling about the issue now is, you know, this shouldn't be a surprise. You know, as you know, we need to go back to our approach to investing in more prevention and intervention and education, healthcare. There are immediate steps, some narrow things we should do, like, you know, have a Narcan available to revive someone's overdosed on heroin or an opiate. That's important. We need to have that. We need to do the work at the front end as well. You know, when we had a crisis before, we made all these investments. They started to pay dividends, and then we cut. As a state, we cut. You know, treatment money to treatment facilities or programs. If we cut investments into mental health or health in general or public health, it's going to have a negative impact. So, you know, we need to take some steps now to help heal and help respond to a crisis or a person in distress or a person who's overdosed. But we have to make that investment at the front end, educating our kids, educating their health, educating in our well-being, and putting that money there, and we'll have fewer crises down the road.
And do you personally, the city in general, do you see kind of a shift in attitude in dealing with addiction away from looking at addicts as criminals, and more of a shift is looking at them as people who have a health crisis or need help on that end? So it's more treating the addict as a person in need of medical assistance versus a criminal that should just be locked up.
You know, I see it albeit incrementally. I would say to people, just look at who the victims are in the crisis. And we saw this, there's always a stereotype of who's a drug abuser, who's an addict. You know, I people near and dear to me and family, and I've seen it firsthand. and friends and young men I've coached in athletics. And I think more and more people, sadly today, have had some experience, direct or indirectly, about this. And so I think that stereotype has changed somewhat. I think we need to do more educating around that, and it still has a way to go. But the face of those who are afflicted or addicted, I think it's definitely changed in all our mindset.
And just to end on a much lighter note, hopefully weather's getting nicer. People are going to start getting out. Anything in particular you're looking forward to
Well,
going
street
to in
cleaning
the city?
starts in April,
Yeah.
but I love this time of year because now, real soon, we get to start with all the great events, from the spring cleanup to Porch Fest, to the open studios, the Memorial Day Parade, all the arts events, you know, around the city, and the activities when we're outside. It's just great to be in Somerville. And this is when, you know, people are especially enviable about our community.
And it's been such a long winter that I'm sure people can't wait to get out and start enjoying it.
Yes, can't wait to see the final grains of sand or debris to be taken off our streets. And hey, it's going to happen. You know, we can't complain. There's always a couple of tough months out of the year. As New England goes, we've seen worse winters.
And just how do you think the winter went as far as you know, people being aware of snow emergencies, following the parking?
We have the greatest amount of compliance, and every year we see, you know, as we see the issuance level and tickets and fines and violations decrease, and so you have a more compliant community, very attentive, and that's really important. We want to thank all the residents of the community and the businesses, because we can do our job better. We can get the streets cleaner, make them safer, and people have really been very cooperative. And the goal is to get the streets clean and safe for everyone, so we can walk and bike, and the businesses can open and have their consumers frequent them.
Well, and hopefully we don't have any more snow emergencies at this point.
So we're teetering. We're going to get
You never
there.
know with March going into April. Well, our time is running short.
It's good to see you, David.
You too. I'd like to thank Mayor Joseph Curtatone for joining us on the Mayor's Report. Again, I'm David Smith, editor of the Somerville Times. Thanks for joining us.